Way to mess everything up, West Ham. Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacinho Tweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome. So I do apologize for not being able to get the player ratings done after the game yesterday. I had something to do. I was at a conference, and so right after the game, I had to run out, so I couldn't do player ratings. But today, we are going to discuss our game against Aston Villa in full. We're also going to talk a little bit about how many points do we need to get out of like the next 5 games in order to feel like we're in a good position to maybe solidify top 4. Also, West Ham, all season they've been this team that's been able to get points where they weren't supposed to. And literally today was the only day I cared whether or not you got points. Literally the only day. I was thinking to myself, they'll probably start prioritizing the Europa League, but can you start prioritizing after the game against Spurs? And what did they do? They came out there looking sluggish, playing right into Spurs' hands, and now they're 3 points behind us. And I get that, sometimes we have to kind of compartmentalize these things, right? Because we're playing so well right now, and there's a lot to be excited about in the Arsenal sphere. We have a good young team that has really come from, I don't know, like nowhere. All of a sudden, it just kind of clicked. Everything was working together, and now we're really enjoying the football that we're watching these young players play. So that's something that I want to celebrate today and really get a deep dive into and just enjoy. But there's also always that elephant in the room around top 4 and needing our contemporaries to lose points, to drop points. And Spurs not doing that today did kind of take the shine away from, not the shine, but kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit because they don't have very many difficult games coming up. They have a very easy run in until the end of the season. And if they decide to click into gear and the teams that they're playing against decide to play high lines and just give own goals, then they will be there until the very end. And God forbid this thing goes down to the North London Derby. So we'll kind of compartmentalize things, talk about our performance, what we like about what we've done, the improvements this team has seen since last season, and then kind of move into the top 4 discussion at the very end and talk about how many points we need to get and how we can continue this really good run. There's about 50 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And get in the chat box and let me know what you guys are thinking. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Souls. Hey, Souls.
Hey, Jess, how you doing? Forest nearly scored. They nearly scored. Nottingham Forest are playing Liverpool.
Oh, yeah. I was watching some of the FA Cup stuff earlier. And I just figured that, Liverpool would just go ahead and win this game. It'd be nice if Nottingham Forest could make it interesting, seeing as like no other team made anything interesting. But keep us updated on that while that game is going on. But obviously won the game against Aston Villa, a tough game, a really important game in the context of top 4 because we played 3 difficult games in 6 days, and we haven't really done that a lot this season. So it was going to really test our mindset, our quality, our legs, our fitness, everything. And going into the Aston Villa game, in our group chat, I was not feeling confident. I just thought, we're going to be tired and sluggish, kind of like what West Ham were today. But lo and behold, like the boys really pulled it out. And what was really impressive to me was from minute 1, we were dominant. We established that we're the team and you guys are going to play the way we feel like playing today. And I love that. I love that we're going to away grounds and establishing our dominance. But just reeling it back a little bit, how important was that game in the context of the 3 games that we played in 6 days and being able to get 6 points out of 9, especially after the Liverpool match where it felt like a lot of people were assuming that this was going to be the beginning of some sort of capitulation for Arsenal?
100%. It's that mentality thing, because if you lose to Liverpool, it's fine. You can kick on and still reach your objectives. But it's if you let that result affect you and lose to Villa, that can have a big knock on effect. And actually, for me, it's the Palace game that I'm looking to, because this is the first time I think in a long, long while that Mikel won't have his team during an international break. Normally, he loses maybe Saka and maybe another one or two players, but this time he's losing all four of his English players that start for him. He's losing Gabriel and Gabriel Martinelli. He's losing Tierney, which he normally does, and the only other is Tomiyasu that's not going due to an injury more than anything. And I think maybe Ramsdale might be pulled out of the England squad depending on how bad this injury is, or if this injury means he has to stay out for 2 weeks or whatever the time period is. So that for me is the more interesting one. But mentally, this game was huge because we played very well and we still lost 2-0. So it can have two effects. It can either push them on to being like, okay, they're just a better team, which is what happened, or they can have the effect of, crap, like we played this well and we still lost. Like, what do we need to do? And it can start to play on your mind. Gabriel and Ramsdale after the City game had those jitters and they were a little bit shaky. So that can happen. And there were two mistakes that led to those goals as well. So it's nothing different. It was two City goals that led from mistakes and two Liverpool games that came from mistakes from us. And I'm just happy to see that they bounced back straight away. No silly moments, clean sheet. And also on top of that, we lost two players and we still looked just as good and dominant and controlling in an away game. And yeah, Austin says, I do think Leno does, surprisingly, his distribution, yeah, it was a bit iffy, but it was a lot better than I've seen his distribution be. So it's positive signs that even though we lost two players, we still didn't look different, because that does happen with us where we lose. And Martinelli's been key to the way we play. And obviously Ramsdale is huge to the way we play. And it could mean Arteta doing some stupidness. And not this time he didn't do a personnel, but he could have tweaked the tactics to be a bit stupid to maybe suit Leno. But he said, no, we're going to play our game. And surprisingly, we look like the home team. That's constantly what everyone on Twitter was saying, everyone that I was speaking to was saying. We look like the home team. And Gerrard looked pissed. Like, he looked so annoyed. I was just like, this is mad, because we've never gone to an away ground and made it a home ground. Like, atmosphere, the away fans made it feel like it was a home game. The players made it feel like that. And for me, that's the best way to respond.
Yeah, that was what was really, so just kind of going back, like seeing Leno in the lineup at first did make me nervous, because I'm thinking, are we going to lose all of our distribution? What is his mindset like? Obviously, we'll probably get onto his saves and stuff towards the end when we start talking about when we were bunkering in and trying to just make sure that we got out there with the win. But I mean, in most positions, we're pretty thin in terms of like for like replacements. There's not a lot of positions where, you could take out a Thomas Partey and bring somebody off the bench that's similar. You could you could not have a Ben White and bring somebody on that's similar. We don't really have that luxury. But in goalkeeper and in left wing, which is the two positions that we happen to need to make changes, we had Leno, who is by all means a number one goalkeeper. It's not freaking Rennerson, you know what I mean? And Emile Smith-Rowe and Martinelli have been going back and forth for the better part of 3 months on who is the better left wing option, basically since Aubameyang has been gone. So I do think that my initial reaction to it was just a little bit more like, what is going to be the reason why we don't win this game? But ultimately, those two positions were okay. And I agree with you with the dominance that we showed from minute one, which when I'm looking at, Arsenal trying to close the gap, which is it's a huge gap. It is. It just is. When we look at the top three and the next three that are trying to get into the top four, the gap is massive in terms of how those teams play, how they establish themselves, how they apply themselves in games, the amount of shots that they give up, the amount of goals that they score, just the sheer dominance of those teams is quite different to the teams just right below them. But one thing that I do is I try to see, like, what are we doing that the big teams do? And of course, we don't do everything similar. If we did, literally we'd be at top of the table. But something that City do often, Liverpool do often, and so do Chelsea, is they go to away grounds and it feels like they're the home team. They don't have to change their game to make sure that the home team doesn't establish dominance on them. They go right to that away ground and say, we're going to play this way and you have to adapt to us. And seeing us do that, we've done that several times. It's not really like it's super new, but it was very, very apparent in this game that regardless of fatigue or missing players, we were the better team and you're going to have to adapt to us. And seeing the way that we nullified Buendia, Coutinho, Ollie Watkins up until, basically like the 60th minute when we lost some of our fitness, it was just really good to see. And it's just another little feather in the cap, I think, of Arsenal moving in the right direction. I mean, I loved what we were doing. Some of the passing was super slick. I mean, they didn't have a shot on goal until like the 96th minute, right?
Yeah, they didn't trouble us attackingly at all. I can't. Yeah, they didn't have a shot on target in the first. I think it was Watkins that hit the post in the first half, and that's it.
All right. Diallo is saying that Gabriel and Ramsdale both withdrew from international duty. Leno not called up. So, yeah. I mean, that's Gabriel obviously withdrawing because of his wife/girlfriend could potentially go into labor soon. Ramsdale because of his injury. So it will be interesting to see who plays a lot of minutes in this international break. Some of our players tend to play a lot, some don't. So we'll see. And I think Sambi even got called up. So a lot of our players are
That's what I mean.
going
It's the
out.
first time. Like, I think, well, this season's definitely, but this is the first time in a long while where we're going to see an international break with most of our players not being available to train. Last time we had one that went to Dubai, so this time he's not going to have anyone. So I'm intrigued to see how the turnaround happens when they come back, when they've only got a couple of days to train and get back into the swing of things. It's going to be interesting because we've got to get used to it because they are going to be called up. So it's another challenge for Arteta to overcome.
Yeah, for sure. Something else just before we get into kind of like the running order of the game, we'll start to talk about specific events or whatever. I do want to kind of touch on two things. The first narrative is I see this after every single time that we win a game. That team just wasn't good today. You got lucky, right? And I think I know, like, obviously when rival fans say that, it's because they were hoping so badly that we would lose, right? But I feel like there's this thing. It's like if you watch Aston Villa play against Brighton and Watford and other teams lower and around them, of course they look really good because they have quality players. But they're not going to play like that against us. Like, we're a much superior team to the teams that they look really good against. And ultimately, we make them look like shit. What we're doing from minute one puts them in a position where they know their game plan is not going to work. And literally from the first time that we played Aston Villa, it's really funny. The first time that we played Aston Villa, I was told that, well, they just weren't good because Dean Smith was there and they were going through managerial troubles. Same thing was said against Leicester. They were going through things with Brendan Rodgers. That's the only reason why you guys won. And we've done the double over Leicester, the double over Aston Villa, and also the double over Wolves. These are all teams that we struggled with last season that now, home and away, no matter who their manager was or what troubles they're going through, we still win the game. And I think it's just at this point, I think we're not lucky and we're not just in good form. We are a superior team to the upper mid-table teams. And so even though they look good against, the teams in and around them, they're not going to be able to do that again against us. But what's up with the celebration police? I think that's the bigger thing that I want to touch on. What is up with the celebration police? Ashley Young coming out with a very similar thing as Ruben Neves about how we just are over celebrating everything. Why do you think that is? It feels like a nothing narrative. And if you guys don't follow Tim Stillman on Twitter, you should. He's hilarious. He basically told everybody to F off. Like, anybody that's trying to police celebration is a loser. But why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I just don't understand why this is even a narrative now. Like, it's so funny. You know what? I just want Arsenal to take the piss now. I want them to go get big celebrities like Beyonce's and your Drakes and your Stormzy's to have a performance, fireworks shows. Just go over the top, man. Like, let's just go over the top. I want it to continue because it's pissing them off. At the end of the day, it's funny to see because if we want to celebrate, we'll celebrate. If we don't, we won't. Like, ultimately, they're doing it because they're trying to downplay what Arsenal are doing. They know crap. Like, this is the club all our ex-players used to banter off and talk crap about, even to the point where Troy Deeney had the balls to come out and say, and talk about Arsenal in a negative light. Jermaine Genius every single week tries to take a pop at us. Graham Souness, I mean, he has a dig at everyone other than, maybe Harry Maguire, really. But, it's funny because they've now got nothing to say. They can't ridicule our performance. They can't say we cheated. They can't say we didn't deserve to win. So the one thing they can do is go, look at the way they're celebrating. Like, that's, for me, that's the sign that, and forget about whether fans think we're back, because I don't think we're back until we start competing for things. But the Premier League definitely feels shit like Arsenal are on their way back, and we no longer, firstly, we can't kick them about, and we can't just kick them out of the game. We can't just use this old dirty tactics against them. Number two, they are flipping, like, they are ripping us a new one. They are absolutely tactically, quality, recruitment, the way they run, how their fans are, like, in every aspect or every facet of football, there's nothing they can say. So they have to look for the one thing that they can criticize, which is, okay, yeah, we are going over the top, but who cares? I couldn't care. I want them to do even more. I want them to start performing, like fireworks, all of that. Like, get the winners, little like board thing that they have with the trophy. Just have a top 4 trophy. Just take the piss out of it. Like, because for me, that is who I am. But yeah, it's they're acknowledging that, you know what, they're back. And forget what, like I said, fans can think that, but the Premier League or those teams definitely know they're not 6-pointers anymore. They are guaranteed Arsenal wins that they no longer can take points from. So that's what is saltiness, really. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think these other teams are making it so much about them. They're making it about them, like, oh, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, this team is enjoying playing together, playing good football, achieving, winning games. And so when they do that, they celebrate. Who cares? Like, it's so weird. It just feels like people are looking for something to try to ding us with because we don't lose the games. And I'd much rather them be talking shit about our celebrations than talking about us not winning games. So I'll definitely take this. And it's, as it becomes more regular, I'm sure the celebrations won't be as big and all of that kind of stuff. But this is a new team. Like, they really haven't been playing with each other. I don't really like this narrative of Arteta's been here for 3 seasons, and that's why they've been here longer. 6 new players in the summer, 6, 4 who are starters. I said 4, and I said 4. That's not 4.
You had
4.
a Rob Holding in it. You had a Rob Holding.
4. But 4 that are starters, and a fit Thomas Partey. He wasn't fit last season.
Yeah.
And we really didn't start clicking like this until December. So it's, as they continue to win, it'll probably go down. But right now they're just riding the high. So, like, who cares? Like, you know what I mean? It's just such a weird thing. And I get that the journalist kind of said, huh?
We're not celebrating losses. This is the funny thing. We're celebrating wins here, not draws or losses. Like, it's funny to me.
It really is. It's just like they have to say something. And at the same time, I know the journalist did set Ashley Young up a little bit and was like, look at them celebrating. It's like they already clinched the Champions League spot, right? It's like they won the league. And then he kind of piggybacked off of it. But just the fact that that's a narrative that they're celebrating like they won the league is just something that I hope at the end of the season we have a reason to celebrate. And I'm going to make a shirt that says we're celebrating like we won the league. Like, because we're just going to keep doing what we want to do. Like, you don't get to control us, but it's interesting. I think it's a shift in, like you said, people are starting to pay attention to us and they're like, oh shit, this is not the same Arsenal that we were playing last season. So I'm bitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going into kind of like the nuts and bolts of the game, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is Bukayo Saka's goal. I think he was much better in this game than he was against Liverpool. We'll talk about him getting kicked and stuff, but the goal that he scored was obviously off another set piece. Like our last, when we played against Wolves, we also scored it on a set piece. When we played against Leicester, we scored on 2 set pieces. And we still have yet to give up a goal on a set piece. Like, it's insane. But I love that Saka, no matter how he's playing, can contribute to a game, in a significant way, whether it's him driving at defenders and getting us into advantageous areas to, get free kicks, or running back and doing his defensive duties, driving us up the pitch. Like, no matter what he does, like no matter what kind of game he's having, he's pretty influential. And this time he scores a goal off of a set piece, kind of like a jumbly one, and then it comes out to him and he hits it first time with his left foot. Saka, he has like 9 goals and 5 assists. I mean, how many goals do you think he could get in this season? And do you think he has a shout to be the PFA Young Player of the Year? That is something that people are starting to put out there. Like, could he potentially get that? Is he on point for that? What does he have to do? What do you think he has to do from now until the end of the season to be considered for something like that?
Just continue doing what he's doing, really. I don't really like this whole, because a lot of people are now trying to put Saka down because he couldn't rip Robertson. Like, I'm yet to come across a winger who's absolutely toasted Robertson. Like, it doesn't happen, So for people to this is the thing, right? This whole narrative works 2 ways, because you're expecting him to rinse one of the best left back, arguably, in a lot of people's opinions, in the world right now. But he's not good. Like, the two don't marry each other. And when you look at, obviously, all the other games, like even yesterday against Villa, it was more to do with the fact that is him creating space, Odegaard creating space, and just us being on our game, and obviously the quality being there. And that goal was superb. Like, it was struck well, it was low, it was hard, and he didn't think about it, ultimately. And in terms of PFA Young Player of the Year, 100%, he should definitely be up there for it. I don't really think there's been a better youngster in the league this season. We're not talking other seasons. This season alone, in a team that was struggling, and he's the sole target. Like, even if you listen to other people are talking about Saka being the main threat. They're talking about him being England's, sort of main starter. They're starting to talk about him beyond like any other youngster in the league. Like, Trent doesn't get any joy in the England team, and Saka's basically, since he went in the Euros, he's never really been out of it. So a lot of credit, like 9 goals. He's had 15 goal contributions, and he's only 20 in a team that's struggling firstly for goals, and he's still got 15. That's remarkable. Like, not only is the assist coming in, which he already had, but he's now adding goals, and he will get like maybe 12 to 15 goals, in my opinion. I still think he's got another 3, especially with the oppositions we're playing. He'll definitely get opportunities to score, and he can play full. He's the most versatile youngster. He can play in virtually any position. He's also been shifted to the left. He's been on the right. The only thing he hasn't done this season is gone into fullback. Luckily, we've not needed him to. So yeah, that's the main thing. We've covered those positions to a degree. So Yeah, I don't see why he shouldn't get it, especially if he doesn't have a huge, like, as long as he doesn't have a huge drop off and he's consistent, like 7s or 6 performances, which he pretty much does do even on a bad game. I can't put anyone over him. Like, I know a lot of people want to bring Trent to the equation and stuff like that, but I still don't see it. I don't see how Trent's better than Saka right now, personally. But that's my opinion, and I do think at the moment, if the season stopped today, he should get it.
Yeah, Saka's doing an amazing job, and one of the things that I feel like is a big reason why he's so disrespected is is also the same reason why he's so good. It's because he's not flashy, he's humble, he just works hard, and he does the things that are really difficult to stop, but it's not flashy. It's not. He has some nice moves, but usually it's just drive at the defender, try to get them off balance and do something quickly and make the right decision on the ball, whether it's a pass or a cross or a shot. And that's why he's so effective. It's cutting out all the bullshit that people usually ooh and ah over and get to the point. And that's what Saka really is. He's a get to the point type of player. And those types of players don't usually get a lot of credit because it doesn't look a certain way. It doesn't pass the eye test. I think that's a lot of why people are not really respecting Saka. But then when they look at his metrics and look at his statistics, they're like, oh, actually, he's performing because he does the things that actually matter in the game. He gets assists, he gets goals, he drags his team up the pitch, he scores goals when it matters. And it's not always just about, well, did he do a Rabona? Was it silky? Was it slick? Was it sauce? Was it tech? Like, it wasn't any of that. And it's not to say that Saka doesn't have all of that stuff, but I think that's what really makes him special. And that's why he's going to be a really good player. It's really the difference between Nicola Pepe and Bukayo Saka. Pepe is probably a more technically good player than Saka in terms of what he can do on the ball, how he can manipulate it, how he can score goals. But Saka does it in a way that's consistent. His game is more rounded and he does it more often. Like, that's important, right? And so I think that's why he's so disrespected. But now that the goals are coming, it's going to be hard to keep him off of these certain lists and from getting these types of accolades. But one of the things that really stood out in yesterday's game was the fact that he was being kicked so ruthlessly by the Aston Villa players. And this happens a lot. If you go back to the McCarthy kick on Bukayo Saka in midair, he didn't get a red card for it. I mean, Saka gets kicked so much. And Emile Smith-Rowe also got kicked a lot in this game. I don't know if people realize, but Matty Cash kicked him down at least. And even Jacob Ramsey, a really bad tackle on him early in the game. You could tell that Gerrard's whole talk was, once it gets to those wide players, just kick them down. It was a stupid plan. It didn't work. But Bukayo Saka in particular has been getting kicked to death. Tyrone Mings, I have to say, I don't think that challenge was a red, but I think that it hurt, Saka, and it was one of many tackles that were just clearly he was getting kicked down. But the thing I love about Saka the most is not only he continues to play, but he went to the ref and said something to him and advocated for himself and his own safety. But why is it that he has to go through those lengths? Why does he have to go and talk to the ref and say, hey, I need protection? Why is it that Bukayo Saka is an England national team player? Most players that play for that team are protected. Why is it that Bukayo Saka is not protected the same? I asked this question before last season, why it was okay to kick Bukayo Saka. He's the only national team player, England national team player I've ever seen just get kicked to death. And it's tiring. He's 20. So what are your thoughts on that? Why do you think Saka has to advocate for himself? Why is he not getting the same protection? And where do we buy him some new ankles? Because if they keep letting this happen, he's going to need some new ones by the time he's 22.
100%. I really don't understand why it got to the point where he needed to say something. It shouldn't be, and I know people say tinfoil hats and all of this sort of stuff, but there is an agenda against Arsenal. The prime, what absolutely stamped that there is an agenda is Xhaka getting booked for cumulative fouls, and he only had one. Well, and it wasn't even a foul. Like it was just that's for me when I was like, okay, you know what? If there wasn't an agenda and no one can see it, then explain this. Explain it, because Matty Cash at that point had 6 fouls committed and not a booking. And he actually didn't even get a booking the whole game, and he ended on like 8 fouls. So that didn't make sense to me. And he's an England national, like he's now a staple piece with it. Okay, last season he was breaking through into that national team, so fine, whatever. But even Trent, who's not in it, gets more protection, and he's not been in that team yet. So it's just, I think there is this. I'm not saying there is an agenda or a clear agenda that people don't like Arsenal, whatever, like tinfoil hats moment. But I do think that Arsenal get sort of, other teams can get away with a lot more when they play Arsenal. Like if that Tyrone Mings incident was, I hate to say it, but if it was Xhaka, it would have been a red card until VAR intervened. I'm not even joking. Like they would have seen the blood on the back of whoever's legs and would have gone red card, and then VAR would have intervened and go, it's not really a red, it's a yellow, whatever. But I still think the red would have stood, because even VAR would have been like, yeah, but the intent. The same thing that happened when he did that to Cancelo, but nothing, obviously contact never happened. So there's a perception and there's a prejudice going into games against Arsenal that they can't book the other team, and it's just weird to me. Like it's not even about protecting Saka; it's just the whole team in general. There seems to be, because no other team gets unfairly treated the way we do. It's not even about giving us penalties. It's not about. It's like if you book a player, their game changes. They can't then go in and keep fouling you. And if they're doing rotational fouls, you have to give one of them a yellow. It stops the other doing it, and it's just, for me, it's just mind-boggling, because Rodri, for example, can do 6 tackles or 6 fouls and get no bookings. But when you look at Arsenal, 1 foul, 1 booking. And it's weird, because if you look at statistically, we've had the least fouls committed with the most cards given. And I'm like, nothing adds up. That's why I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it. That's something which refs need to answer for, because nothing adds up. It's whether it's protecting players, even when we do scream and shout. Like this season, we've been doing it a lot more, and we're getting booked for it. We're just asking the question of the ref, and we're getting booked for asking a question. Whereas other teams do way worse in the same situation, and nothing happens. So I don't know. I really don't want to say like, oh, there's an agenda, there's something against Arsenal, but at this point, I don't know what to believe, because I have to believe there's something, because otherwise it makes no logical sense to why it happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating, because the payoff of having a player like Bukayo Saka that gets fouled a lot is getting fullbacks and center backs on yellow cards so that they can't do it again. And so as Bukayo continues to do it, they have to kind of let him go. But we don't ever get that benefit. And it's like, I have a hard time believing that referees don't understand rotational fouling, that they can't grasp, that people are doing these things. And it's just weird how we can foul once and get a yellow, first foul of the game. And then somebody can foul Bukayo Saka 3 or 4 times and not get anything. Matty Cash can have 6 fouls in a game, a lot of them on Emile Smith Rowe. Almost every one of his fouls was on Emile Smith Rowe, and get nothing in that game. And I'm finding it hard to watch, especially because they're such young players and we use them to get up the pitch, and it's nice to get the fouls. But ultimately, I'm thinking about their health and safety, and they won't last until they're 25, 26, 27 years old being kicked like this. And we shouldn't have to change our game in order to suit a system that's meant to protect players from this exact thing. So it's really annoying. And I know that Saka will persevere, but the fact that he has to go to the ref and do this is annoying, but he has to do this more, right? He has to go to the referee. Our players need to be advocates for themselves, and the right players need to go up to the refs as well in the right way. I think Saka would probably be more well received than like somebody like Xhaka going up to the referee. I just think they don't even want to see him coming. But our players need to do more of that, right? We've seen it more this season than we ever have, but we need to do it in the right way, right? To make sure that it doesn't come back, because anything that we do can come back and bite us in the ass.
100%. I think Lacazette's done that very well. Every time he goes to the ref, it does seem to de-escalate the situation. And I think another player that does it is Gabriel. I've seen him go over to the ref a few times, not steaming off or anything, but just it seems to be a calm, conversation. So that's all we need. We just can't go over to the ref pissed off. Like if we do that with the reputation that we have or we've set ourselves, it's only going to end in cards. So we just need to be careful, but we need to, of course, we need to advocate for ourselves, and because that's the only way anything's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the whole it's a fine line, right? I don't really want to lean into the agenda narrative for me personally, and I know you don't either. But everybody knows that the refereeing is just poor from a game to game basis. I seen Alon get a red card for something that it wasn't a red card. It just wasn't. And then you turn around in another game and there's a terrible tackle somewhere and they don't get anything. And it's not consistent. They're not protecting the players really. And they either need to everybody let a lot of shit go or everybody be super tight, not everybody doing their own thing. And I know it's difficult, but it would just be nice to see some consistency. And when I see certain players get fouled that go down easy all the time, it would be nice to see Bukayo Saka get the yellow cards that he should be getting against his opposition, because he doesn't go down easy. He usually tries to stay up, and it's just fucking annoying. You know what I mean? But nevertheless, like that first half for me, in a game where it was kind of like I wasn't sure what we were going to get, I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of dominance. The passing was so good, so slick. Our moves were really good. We weren't necessarily clinical in the final third. There were a couple of opportunities. There was one that it was such a nice move and it went to Lacazette, and instead of just trying to go into the box, he turned away, turned his body, tried to do a turn. It was just, I don't really think it was a good game for Lacazette or our front line, really. We really weren't clinical, but we dominated the game in a way where they really had no chances on the other end. And the one chance that we did get, we did put it away, which was good. I know you touched on the Xhaka thing. I just kind of want to give my 2 cents on that as well before we kind of wrap up the refereeing conversation. What a crock of shit that was. I mean, and here's the thing is that I saw a lot of people doing the, well, that's Xhaka's reputation, so it's his fault. Here's where I think his reputation becomes an issue. Is my issue with the situation was him not going to the referee and taking the yellow card, walking away. That is where I'm like, anybody else can do that and get away with it. But with you, they'll give you the first yellow for whatever happened with Matty Cash, and then they'll turn around and give you another one because you won't get the first one, right? That was where I thought the reputation of Xhaka was a legitimate thing to bring up. But it infuriated me that I saw people saying that, though, that's just Xhaka's reputation and look what he did. And he didn't do anything to deserve that yellow card, because the referee outed himself by saying you fouled there, and there. And so now, because it's consistent infringement, I'm going to give you another yellow. I'm going to give you a yellow card for that, when he had not fouled anybody yet. What was that? And it's just poor fucking refereeing. And what it seemed like to me was, I just need to give you a yellow. I just need to give you one. I'm desperate. And I think he had already had an Aston Villa player or two on a yellow. So it was like, I need to even this shit out a little bit. Not only that, Thomas Partey got a really soft yellow given to him as well. It was just, the refereeing was so poor. And I do think Xhaka did a really good job in this game of keeping his temper in line, because it felt like red card pending, right? And I think we did a really good job of not getting caught up in the bullshit, not getting, too overly emotional about things and having the right level of emotion, but letting it go when we should. And I think that's why we didn't get caught up in the getting down to 10 men and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I do think that Xhaka deserves, I know it's kind of like, why does he deserve credit for doing something he should be doing? But we know how Xhaka is, right? And I was happy to see him let things go when he needed to, right?
100%. I find it weird. I was like, Mighty Cash is literally on 4 fouls or 5 fouls at that moment, and you've done nothing. And then when he did do the whole pointing thing, I was like, wait a minute, like he didn't foul there. He didn't foul. I was like, everywhere you're pointing, he didn't even tackle there. Like, forget about fouling someone for a second. He didn't even tackle in those positions. So what are you talking about? And that's why I keep saying that when I talk about an agenda, yeah, it is bad refereeing, but some of the yellow cards we get, I'm like, I've never seen, not even a speaking to. They just get given as a free kick and you move on with your day. I don't even want to get into a ref conversation because it seems to be an every week occurrence. They're doing something stupid.
This season it's been worse than ever, in my
Yeah,
opinion. Like
they're trying
it
so
feels
hard.
worse. Yeah, the refereeing has been really bad this season, and even the introduction of VAR has been very rough. It's been clunky, so I am happy that Xhaka didn't lose his head. That was definitely a game where we were under little to no threat that could have easily turned because we didn't keep our heads. And so I'm very happy that he did that. So talking about some individual performances, though, we already kind of talked about Bukayo Saka. And I guess, I want each of us to highlight a player that we think had an outstanding game. There's a couple that you could really pick out. So we could probably pick out a couple each if we wanted to, maybe one or two. But I'm going to start because we're going to talk about Thomas Partey. Woo, woo, woo. Okay, so he was amazing again, and we expect him to be. Here's the thing. It's like, this isn't anything that I'm shocked by. I'm not shocked that he can play at this level. We all knew when we got him that this is what he could do, right? But it's just so nice to see him actually play at that level on a consistent basis. Last season, we saw flashes. He had okay games here, good games here, pieces of games here. But now it's consistent, really good performances from Thomas Partey at a world-class level. Thomas Partey is a world-class midfielder. I'm not ashamed to say it. He just is. When you can play in a lesser team against the best teams in the world and stand out and look like you can play on their team and you're bossing the midfield, you're world-class. Not many players outside of the top 3 can do that. It just is. It just doesn't happen, I would say probably the only other CDM that can play at that level is maybe Declan Rice, outside of the top 3. And so watching him play at this consistent level, I feel like gives me more confidence that we can get into the top 4, because you need your best players to step up in those moments and be able to play against any opposition and dominate the game. If we can dominate the midfield, we dominate every game. And since Thomas Partey has been playing well, it's made Xhaka better. It's made Odegaard better. And so our midfield play has been so, so good. And yeah, there's levels. Like sometimes Odegaard is really good. Sometimes he's a little bit more demure. Sometimes Xhaka is really good. Sometimes he's a little bit off. But ultimately, as long as Thomas Partey is playing well, they play well, which is a big, big deal. And so I'm just happy for him. I think that, it's looking like a well worth 50 million. Atletico Madrid was so stupid to make his release clause so low. And it's actually disrespectful for a player of his caliber to have a release clause that low. It was like 45 million. That is way too low. When you look at some of their other release clauses for the Kokes and the Sauls and the João Felixes, they're in the hundreds of millions. His was 45 million. And I just feel like there's a level of disrespect there that gave us an opening to take advantage of something and give him a role in a team where he feels valued. And he's playing at a different level. If you watched him at Atletico Madrid, he was this good, but there's things that he's doing in this midfield, playing alone in midfield in a single pivot, that's completely just what he's doing at Arsenal. He's never really done it before. And I can't wait to see how much better he gets, because a lot of players don't improve in their prime. They hit their prime and they decline. And for him to be 28 years old and to be actually improving is not only a testament to how good of a player he is, but how good of a coach Mikel Arteta is. And I'm just loving watching this guy thrive, because I remember just a couple months ago, people were talking about, oh, when he goes to AFCON, I'm going to be so happy because then he's not going to be playing. And oh, maybe we should just sell him. It hasn't worked out. Bam! That is why you stay loyal to your players, because Tierney is also another one that has went up a couple levels in these last couple of games. You have to be loyal to these players if they have some credit in the bank, right? Who do you think had a standout performance against Aston Villa this time around?
The other player that's got a lot of hate but actually signed this season, Benny Blanco Benjamin White. I'm gonna say his name right this time. And for me, there was that block right that came in, and he kind of like blocked it with his legs or something, and he had to do this weird thing to get the most ever so slight touch to put it away from Ollie Watkins having an open goal, I think it was. And I think all round, like he has been phenomenal. Like he stood out in all the games we've played, and for me, I've always said it. You know, he's for me the best defender we've got right now. I feel Gabriel's been very good. Not to put anything on him, but he's had shaky moments, whereas Benjamin like White's kind of covered for that. And for me, he's just been sensational since he's come. I mean, I keep forgetting that he's 50. It cost us 50 million pounds. Like he's overpriced or all of this, because he's living up to what we want him to do. And my other one's going to be someone I just didn't expect this from, and that's Leno. I expected a lot from him. Don't get me wrong, like shot stopping and all of that. We know he's a brilliant, arguably one of the best shot stoppers in world football. He's just if you're looking at shot stopping alone, just leave it at that. But when it comes to sort of his distribution, I was quite surprised. Yeah, there were a lot of moments I was like, who are you passing it to? Like, really? Like, what are you actually doing? But there was a few where he picked out ESR and he actually got to ESR. And I was like, you know what? Fair play. Like, you've definitely been working. Like, because you could tell, even if it's not perfect, you can tell when a player's tried or is trying to work on something. And you can definitely see it. He's definitely tried to improve his, distribution. Not every time is it going to work, but it was definitely better. And I felt he was a bit more commanding than he normally is. And he knew when to go long, he knew when to go short, he knew when to play what type of ball. And for the first time, we actually didn't feel like we missed Ramsdale. Like, I mean, I know it's one game, so it's easy to say that in one game, but I didn't really feel like the nervousness going into it, thinking, crap, we've got Leno, like there can be a mistake here, they can capitalize on something. I didn't feel that at any point in the game that Leno's going to be the reason we lose this game. Actually, he was the reason we got 3 points because of that Coutinho save right at the end when he bent it in. I don't know if it was on target or not, but it was a
I don't give a damn. That was so good. Like, I was like, yes, it made it so much more dramatic.
Exactly. So, so they're going to be my two, because obviously you said Partey and Saka's already been spoken about. But because I just think, like, why get so much stick because he didn't watch football when he was younger? That's the real reason. Like, people are, yeah, but he didn't know who Patrick Vieira was. It doesn't matter. Like, I've said, even when he made that comment, I said it then. I go, look, when you're in a profession, you don't always indulge in it 24/7. Like, my career, for example, I don't go home and start watching press conferences or TED Talks about, technology all the time. I don't care to do that because I've been at work for 8 hours. I don't want to come home and to sit there and watch more conferences about the thing I do all day long. Like, I just don't want to do that. So I get it. Like, even when I was a kid, like playing football, I'm not going to lie, on the weekends, I went to play football. I didn't sit at home watching football. On the odd occasion, I watch Match of the Day and stuff, but I'd watch like one game a week, or if that, or once a month. Like, I barely watched football when I was a kid. So I get it. I understand it, because when you're playing, training sort of 3 times a week, playing a game on the weekend, and if you're on the path to becoming a professional, you're traveling at the same time. You're going to these random tournaments when you're on holidays, and you're going to play in London. You're going to play in in the north in this tournament, this competition. So you're always busy. So you're not gonna have time to sit down and just watch football. Barely us who don't play football barely get time to do it. So yeah, for me, I
it
just
was
didn't get the hate.
confirmation bias, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
for
100.
some people that had decided that 50 million was too much for this guy, he wasn't that good. Also Saliba bias in the back of their head.
100.
It was confirmation that he wasn't going to be worth the 50 million because he doesn't watch football. I just don't think Ben White really gives a shit what people think.
Yeah,
He doesn't
yeah.
seem like somebody who really cares, who just does whatever he wants. But as long as he performs the way he performs on the pitch for us, I don't really care. And I don't know what it is about him, but the type of defending that he doesn't really show up on statistics. Like he's not top of the aerial duels or top of tackles or anything like that. But the way that he plays makes me feel much more secure. And his partnership with Gabriel, I think, is a big part of it. My second standout performer is going to be Gabriel. I do think that he had a very, very good game against Aston Villa. It was like they were really under no threat at all. Every single time Aston Villa tried to do something, it just wasn't coming off because those two were so solid. And their partnership is getting better and better and better and better. And I love it. And Yo-Yo makes a really good point saying that Gabriel White times Xhaka and Partey is the most secure base since Laurent Koscielny, Per Soccer, and Santi and Coquelin. This looks like an Arsenal team again. And the thing about that is that I still think that this quad, you want to call it a quad? The square? What? The base? The spine?
It's part of the spine. Yeah.
I'll call it a base.
Yeah.
Let's call it a base. I don't know. Let's call it something. So this base, I think, because of its age and the fact that we're going to upgrade on 34, Xhaka can be better than Per and Koscielny and Santi obviously was amazing, and Coquelin. So, but that's very, very true. The partnerships is what really makes it tick. And Gabriel is somebody that I think it can be disrespected in the Arsenal fan base because there's this thing where it's like, we need to figure out which one of Ben White or Gabriel is going to take a back seat to Saliba, so they're trying to constantly figure that out. And I'm like, I want Saliba to come in and know that he has to work really hard for that position because I don't think it's that simple. First of all, Gabriel is left-footed and Arteta loves having that balance of a right footer and a left footer. And I just, I think it's going to be difficult for Saliba to get in, even though as good as he is, because Gabriel and White have been building a partnership that's going to be very, very difficult. And Gabriel was elite in this game. I felt no worry, no nothing. He was on it. There was only one pass that went over his head and he had to recover, but everything else he ate up. And Ollie Watkins just was like, was he even in the game? Like there were so many players where it was like, did Coutinho play? Did Bodega play? Did so-and-so play? And this was definitely a game for narrative because of obviously them trying to have like a fake rivalry with us, them putting in a weird bid for Emile Smith-Rowe, us losing out to Emi Buendia to them, Emi Martinez saying that was a step up for him, our links to Coutinho, all of that, and them doing the double over us last season. It just felt like there was something there, and I'm glad we just kind of kiboshed that. You know what I mean?
Even funnier, Ramsdale played the home leg clean sheet. Leno played the away leg clean sheet. Like that's like the biggest FU to Martinez that we could ever send. So both our keepers came to you and kept clean sheets. So deal with that one.
Exactly. I mean, that's the best thing, right? So let's see. What are you guys saying? Saswat says, I think next season Ben White can be deployed as a DM in games if Partey is out. If Lokonga isn't fully ready, Saliba covers. Right-sided center back will have like 50 to 55 games next season. Fair enough. I see like some people really have this idea that Ben White could play in the midfield. That is for me an emergency type of thing, but I hear what you guys are saying. Happily Egg says defenses are always about partnerships. Look at United, Lindelof highly rated, Slabhead highly rated. Together they're a bag of shite. I love that, happily eggs. I love that. Yo-Yo says, I felt like in the it felt like a first leg in a European tie. Arsenal kept them at arm's length throughout. Yeah, it was just, if you look at, we've improved so much in terms of being able to be consistent against the type of teams that we should be beating. And doing the double over Aston Villa, Wolves, and Leicester, to me, is a big sign of that, because those are teams that we really struggled with last season. And Aston Villa just had like no answers whatsoever. The Eddie 1401 says, Ben White is cool-headed. He's got the right attitude. Really, the pressure doesn't show at all. That's a good thing, as well, is that he seems to be able to keep things, very calm, which I love about him as well. So just to kind of turn the corner here, I do want to talk about the end of the match. So at the end of the game, obviously first 60 minutes, we were totally dominant, but you could kind of see around the 63rd minute, 65th minute, we were running out of gas, which is to be expected. 3 games in quick succession, difficult games as well. We were always going to run out of steam, and it was definitely time to kind of batten down the hatches. And one of the things I never really, I thought about, that Arteta did that was very smart, that I never really dinged him for, was focusing on defense first, because of those defensive principles that we had 2 seasons ago under him and last season have carried on into this team, and we're able to use those in really difficult scenarios. We're now a much more front-footed, attacking, dominant team, but when we need to, we're able to be a little bit more humble, realize that we can't sustain this amount of pressure for 30 more minutes, 20 more minutes, and we just batten down the hatches. We just sit in our block, and we are so difficult to beat when we go into that low block, right? And that's something that I don't feel like a lot of teams have. I feel like they're so arrogant, want to play their way, that they don't really have that in them to just kind of be like, you know what, we just want to get out of here, away from home, tired, with the 3 points. And a big part of that is not only the shape and all of that, but is bringing in Holdinho, or Holdini, whatever you guys want to call him. I mean, that guy, let me just talk about somebody with a really good attitude. Holding is not my favorite player. Everybody knows that. But the attitude that this guy has, this is the second time that he's come in late in a game, away from home, giving us that extra defender and that stability, ready to come onto the pitch. And we're going to get onto some other, substitutes that came on and didn't look ready to go. But Rob Holding comes on, and he just looks ready to go. He gives us that stability. We get into that 5-2-3 or whatever the hell it is. And I just loved it. And I just knew from that moment we were going to win the game. What is your take on Arteta improving as a manager that can see out difficult games and grind out wins, but also having a team that loves defending and takes defending serious? It was another clean sheet, and being able to do that away from home in difficult circumstances.
I love it, because you need to have those moments. You need to be able to, and that's the hallmarks of a champion. And it's grinding those 1-0s. Because last season, a game like this, we'd either draw or lose, but this time we managed to hold on bar one player. He basically came on to play for Villa. We'll get on to him. I don't even care. People say I've got an agenda, but we'll get onto that player. But I loved it. Everyone knows their roles. It was like, okay, we're going into a 5-3-2. Everyone knew exactly what that meant and what we're doing. It was fluid. There was no like, oh, we needed a moment for it to settle in what we're doing. It was smooth. Even if Holding didn't do the 5-3-2 signal, we wouldn't really know what the hell was going on, because it was that smooth. It just looked natural. It looked like, okay, everyone had their role to play. Everyone knew what they needed to do, what positions to be in, and there was nothing more to go. So it's brilliant to see. And he's no longer, the main thing that it shows is he's not arrogant. He's not being cocky. He's not being, overreaching, thinking, yeah, let's just play our way. Let's just go for the way we want to play and see the game out that way. Because what normally happens is you start getting exposed, and we also, because of the way we played, we forgot we were away from home. And It's going to happen. You're going to lose a bit of control. It's natural to do that. And I think Arteta's seen that. He's seen, okay, we're looking a bit jaded. I've only got 3 substitutions. I've used 2. So let me do something to just solidify that defense. And we know we can see this out. We know we've got, the king of low blocks and Rob Holding. And let me throw him on and let's just get away with 3 points rather than potentially losing all 3. So it's brilliant to see that we've got a plan A, and we've coped with a plan B, because this is what I'm saying, it's coping, because a plan B really is someone who can change the entire dynamics of a game. But we know if we need to defend a game, we can do that. If we need to attack a game, we can do that. And for me, that's the signs. You need to have both. As much as people want to sit there and go, yeah, but Man City don't do that, Liverpool don't do that. They do in certain games. If you watch some of their 1-0s or those games where they don't go and score until the 80th minute or the 90th minute sometimes, you'll see how much they're grinding, and they have to bring on Origi. They have to let go of Salah in those games. They have to do things that you just don't think Liverpool's or Man City's will do. So it's good. It's, for me, the main thing is he's not being arrogant, and he's actually aware that, okay, my plan A is now not working. Let me switch something up. So that's the key for me.
Saswat says, follows instructions perfectly. I think this is talking about Holding. He could easily be frustrated and try to show the world his Ben White qualities, then possibly muck it up and cost us. He respects his role, all one can ask for. And I have to say that that's 100% true. And Arteta knows what kind of players he wants. He needs culture guys, guys that are good enough to be backups, but aren't going to kick up a fuss because they're not playing, just like you said. And Holding is the perfect example of that. And I love everything about what Rob Holding does, from coming in last 10 minutes and just heading balls out and just securing us and getting us out of trouble, to standing up for his teammates at Leeds, away ground, and standing up for his teammates that were racially abused. Everything about Holding just speaks good professional, good player, good culture guy. And that's kind of what you need in teams like this. And I just want to say that, like, the word that comes to me when I'm thinking about this game is maturity, because I think Arteta has matured as a coach, and the team is maturing as the season goes on. And if you think about last season, when we went down to 10 men against Wolves, when David Luiz got sent off, right? Did we win that game? No. We went on, not only we were up 1-0, we went down to 10 men, then we got scored on, and then Leno also got sent off. So we went down to 9 men and then lost. I think that was a Matinho goal, right?
Yeah, that was a brilliant goal. Yeah.
Yeah, we went down to 10 men this time, and we won the game, being up 1-0. Last time we went away from home to Aston Villa, they scored an early goal first 70 seconds of the game, and we couldn't break through after that. This time around, we dominated the game, tired, and won it 1-0. We are maturing. We are getting better in these types of scenarios. And it's the performances of the Rob Holdings and the maturity of Mikel Arteta to just be humble in those scenarios and just bunker down, and the team to have the right mindset, even with tired minds and tired legs and tired bodies, is a good thing. But let's talk about Pepe and Nketiah. I think we do need to touch on them a little bit, because, like, we have no real, and I said this before the game started, I said the starters are going to have to do it because there's nothing on that bench. And I got obliterated by social media, right? And obviously they're taking everything so literal, like I'm saying that they're nothing people and they don't exist in life and all this kind of stuff. And that's not what I'm saying. But when I say we have nothing on the bench, what I mean is, like, we have nobody with the experience or quality to make something happen in a tough away game. And Eddie and Pepe really just they just brought that home. There was very little that they really offered. And Pepe, I thought, started off okay, and then when Lacazette came off, he tailed off and had some really dodgy moments. But Eddie and Nketiah came onto the pitch and walked, and I was so angry, because I'm like, this is somebody that was coming in before Pepe, was the first guy off the bench, and Now he's just coming off the bench and just walking, fouling players and walking off, not being keyed in, not being clued in. And as I know they're going to probably be gone, especially Eddie and Nketiah. But it just infuriates me that they come on and they offer nothing off the bench when we need it. And we're not lucky to get it over the line. But it really makes me worried, like if something were to happen to one of our players, if Lacazette were to get injured, and we got thinner and thinner and thinner as a squad, if we need to rely on those two, what are they going to give us? And the difference between this game and the game that they came in against Wolves is we added them to the players that we already had. We took Cedric off and then we added Nketiah. So Lacazette was still there. If you take off Lacazette and you only have Nketiah and Pepe up top, that they are not going to be enough. So do you want to rant about them? Because I needed to get that off my chest.
Yeah, genuinely. Do you know the first thing that came onto my head after that game? Do you know when Benzema was in that Champions League game to Vinicius? I swear he's playing against us. I swear don't pass him the ball. He's playing again. That's what came into my head when I seen Pepe. I was like, did you come on for Villa or did you come on for Arsenal? Like, I'm confused. Do you know what summed it up? He ran for the ball. He got to the ball and went, oh yeah, let me pass it to a Villa player. Like, why did you run to lose? Like, you weren't even pressed. Like, you were like, I was just like, what you do? Like, I was so confused with the whole performance. I was like, I don't understand. Like, you are literally playing like you're an imposter right now. Like, with Nketiah, every time he ran, he tripped over. So I understand why he was walking because he couldn't even get his own legs intact. Like, I was like, what? I was just like, you know what? Like, and what infuriates me the most, I was like, I tweeted after the game, I go, this is why Pepe doesn't start. And people are still defending him. I was like, I find it mind boggling that you're willing to defend that. And I go, we're lucky that it didn't cost us the game. We got lucky. Like, that was when I said, like, okay, we got let off big time because he was giving free kicks away. He was meant to come on to hold the ball and just not give away possession, and all he did was give away possession. And this is why I don't care if people think I've got an agenda, because they go, and I always say, like, he doesn't offer us enough for me to start him, because when you look at build-up play and people are like, yeah, but he gets a goal and assist. So what? Saka gets a goal and assist, but guess what he also does? His defensive responsibilities. If he's not scoring or assisting, he's building play up. If he's not doing that, there's so much more other players do. And this is why I've said, like, if he's gonna play, he's not gonna play for Arsenal. He needs to move on for his own career. The thing is, he's a brilliant player that's not made for the Premier League. He's just not a Premier League player. There's some players who do have the knack. And there's some that just need to go to slower leagues that have a bit more time, a bit more space to really think about what they want to do. And for me, it's just, they were just awful. Like, I was like, oh my God. It was just awful. Like, it wasn't even a level drop thing. It was just, you are like Vanarama Sunday League level, and these guys are playing Champions League football. Like, that's how much it felt like. It felt like we brought on, like, a guy that's 14 making his debut. Like, he was so shell shocked. I just didn't get it. I just don't understand what he has to offer anymore.
My whole thing is, like, I get this whole Pepe doesn't fit into Arteta's system thing, and I do agree with that. But when I'm talking about, like, this is something to look forward to in the summer, but beyond needing strikers, obviously, and needing to upgrade at the front end of the pitch, we need like 2 strikers and an attacker. Like, we really do need to, because Arteta really hasn't brought in very many attacking players, and most of the players that are up there he's inherited. And like we've seen with the midfield and the defense, if he gets his players, we will pop, right? So I want to see the same thing happen. But there is also a question of depth here and what kind of depth we have. And I tend to be kind of like, upgrade on what you have and then allow those players that are no longer starting become your depth. And that is the next step for this team. We need to have players that are of quality and experience and mindset to come off the bench and make things happen, home or away, no matter if we're winning the game or losing the game. And right now, it just seems like the starters need to get it done, because if you bring in Eddie and Pepe, you're not really going to get that much. I'm pretty sure they'll be better at home because you kind of have the home fans G'ing you up and all that kind of stuff. But away from home, we just need you to keep the ball, pressure, run. And Nketiah was walking. And that is just like, I mean, he must know he's got a move this summer or something like that, like signed, sealed, and delivered, because he was acting like somebody that couldn't be asked. And that's what I got from his body language. And yes, I do. I read fluent body language. I know I'm not supposed to, but I do. I speak that language. I read that language, and it was not good. That being said, we won the game, which is all that really matters. Just because I know you need to go, Sol. So I want to do a quick look forward to the next 5 games, if that's okay, and just kind of talk about what we think we need to get. Obviously, or what we think is going to happen. Obviously, we need to win every game, but I do think that there's some things that we can look at. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There's been a lot of questions around should we be scared of Spurs and their newfound form and all that kind of stuff. And I am annoyed at West Ham, but ultimately I think a lot of us kind of knew that they were not going to be in the best shape going up against a rested Spurs team. So they faltered, and so it is what it is. But hey, I think that if we do what we're supposed to do, we'll get what we need to get. I don't want to spend all my time being worried about the other teams doing what they're doing. Because they're going to win games, right? Because they're shit, but they're not that shit, So here we go. We have Crystal Palace away, Brighton at home, Southampton away, Chelsea away, and Man United away. Those are our next 5 games.
Man United at home. Sorry.
Man United at home.
Yeah, just in case people start going, oh no, we're at home.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a United fan now.
Yeah. You guys look at my you guys can see because of where I live. See this? 4:30 a.m., 7 a.m., 7 a.m. You guys see that? See that? 4:30 a.m. I wake up for Man United versus Arsenal. Like, are you serious? So let's kind of talk through this a little bit. Crystal Palace is in a decent form. The one thing I do want to say about watching these teams play is that Crystal Palace looks really good against Everton because Everton are terrible. But they're not going to play like that against us. Now, the first time that we played them, we weren't this Arsenal, were we? We were still scored the first goal early and then sit back, and we ended up narrowly drawing that game. Is that in those next 3 games, Crystal Palace, Brighton at home, and Southampton away, the most worrisome out of those 3? Crystal Palace?
Out of the 3, probably, just because I think they play the best or the most consistent anyway. They don't usually divert from their playing style, and they're probably the most complete team. Like Brighton are missing a potent goal scorer before they become a real threat to anyone, and Southampton are very iffy. Like I don't really like. They're a team I don't understand because they can pull some of the biggest performances and get the biggest shocks, and then the very next game they can go lose to Norwich, who are bottom of the table, and then they can turn up against City. Like they're just such a weird team. I just don't know what to expect of them. And obviously it's at St. Mary's, which is a stadium we struggle at, and we haven't had the best of times. But I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna sit here and tell you, Crystal Palace play exactly to the way we want them to play. We want them to come at us and we can pick them apart. Brighton do that, and Southampton somewhat do that, but I do think they're going to be a lot more reserved. But we find a way to beat them as well. So in those 3 games, I'm hoping for full points, and I'm kind of expecting full points. But I do think there might be a draw in there, but I'm fairly confident we'll go in and we'll get all 9 points before we go into the Chelsea United game. And the only one that I'm a bit nervy about is actually Southampton. If I'm being completely honest, it's a stadium we haven't done well. We haven't travelled well, and I think our last result was 3-2 last season, and that was like a very sort of end to end. We had to grind that goal out to win the game. So yeah, that's the only one I'm a bit like I don't know what's gonna happen there, but 9 points for me.
Yeah, I mean, we have no distractions. We're fully focused on top four, and that's it. So I expect us to, like, out of these first three games, Crystal Palace and Brighton and Southampton, I personally think Crystal Palace will be the most difficult because of obvious reason. Patrick Vieira feeling like they should have won it the first time around, them having good young talent, wanting to come up against us, another London team, all of that. But I still expect us to win that game. Brighton, they're in terrible form and we're playing at home. That should be 3 points in the bag. Southampton, I think we'll beat them because they go through these weird bouts of form. And I think they're not that great defensively either. So I think we should beat those three teams. We should. Now, when you get to those next two games that are 3 days apart, 64 hours apart, that's when I think it's going to get like, oh shit, because we don't really do that well away from home at Stamford Bridge, but we have gotten points from there recently. Chelsea are a team that you just don't get a lot of change from. So what do you think Arteta needs to do? Like 3 big games, we'll play Southampton, Chelsea, and Man United all kind of like in the same week. Is that kind of where you want to see Arteta manage the squad better or manage the way that we play better? When we played against Liverpool, we went all out and lost the game. And then played against Aston Villa and we're really tired at the 60th minute. If we were to have a similar trajectory in that way where we kind of beat Southampton and then we play against Chelsea, we know we have to beat Man United at home. Would you want to see us be a little bit more reserved against Chelsea, knowing that it's going to be difficult to get change from them, or just play our way and go all the way out?
I think that's where the Southampton game is quite crucial to what we do because we can afford to play a Pepe in that game. We can afford to maybe give Lacazette a rest in that game. For me, you've got to change tactically against Chelsea just because that's a game which we're going into and we know we can do well against, and they're a low block team. So you need to bring a Martinelli and you need to bring a bit of aerial threat, someone who's going to get on the end of those. ESR plays really well against teams that do go into low blocks. So you have to change a few things up, but then you've got to manage the game in the game as well. If we're 1-0 up or 2-0 up, manage it properly. Don't just let games go by and make a substitution in the 80th minute. You've got to do 60th minute substitution, 75th minute if you want your second or third one to come in within that sort of time period. And it's about managing minutes before that, giving, because as bad as we are at Southampton sometimes at St. Mary's, we've got players who are more than capable of being rotated in, giving Lokonga a go instead of maybe Partey. I'm not saying transform the entire 11, but just inside the game, just give those guys a 30-minute break in a game and then go again for Chelsea. Because we can actually start our 11 every single game, but it's just what we do in those games. Like Southampton let's say, for example, he rotates Partey, Saka, and Lacazette. Against Chelsea, do another one. Do, like, I don't know, Odegaard, Martinelli, and whoever else is typically tired. And then you go into that, at least they've had a bit of a break. Maybe not a full break, but enough of a break where they're still match sharp, but they've had a break. Because it's going to be impossible not to give them minutes because you need to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I see it. Just try and manage the minutes as best as you can, giving them some time on the bench for half an hour, 20 minutes at least in one of those games.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like, I would like to see us. I know this probably sounds terrible, but against Chelsea, I would like to see us kind of conserve our energy a little bit because the game against Man United is going to be very, very, very difficult. And we're going to be at home. So obviously, we're going to have the impetus to be the better team, which is going to open up that space in behind our high line for them to run in behind, which is what they want. I think it's going to be a very difficult game, even with our form. So knowing that, I want us to make sure that we win that game. The Chelsea game, I'm kind of like, sit back, try to nick it, try to nick a draw. and if they start beating us and it's 2-0, kind of like Liverpool, pull all of our good players off and just go for the Man United game, because I just don't think Chelsea are the type of team where I think if we were at home playing like this, I would think that go ahead and play your game. But playing at Stamford Bridge, I just don't see us getting much out of that game. So, yeah, these 3 games here after the Crystal Palace and Brighton game are going to be very interesting to see how Arteta manages things, because I was happy that he went full out against Liverpool, but you saw the repercussions of that against Villa, and we didn't get caught out, but we could potentially get caught out against Man United doing that. And so there may not be a point in going full out against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, because they just really don't. They're good. I hate to say it, but they
also
are.
they don't play to a style that we need to go full out, because I'm not saying they park the bus, but they are very sort of not even defensive, but kind of a hybrid of a defensive attacking team. Like they're not a Liverpool where it's constant waves of attacking pressure. So we can't afford to go back. Like play how we did against Villa, like just very conservative, keep the ball, just play this, like move the ball around, just keeping it kind of one touch slow. And you can then go and do what you did against Liverpool to United. So we can afford to do that, it'll be interesting. I'm really intrigued to see how he manages this.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be hard. And so I would say going into the end of the season, the 2 games that people are really looking at, obviously, are Man United and the Spurs game away from home. I just think we have to do what we've been doing and not lose those games. I don't necessarily feel like we have to beat them. We just have to make sure that we don't lose.
Yeah.
And we can get it over the line. But I'm going to say, just to go ahead and do like a small prediction, that I think we're going to get 10 points out of the next 5, if I'm doing my math right. I think we'll win 2 of those out of those 3. I think we'll slip up and draw 1. We'll lose against Chelsea and we'll beat Man United. What do you think?
I think it's going to be 4 wins and a draw. I think we're going to draw against Chelsea and we're going to beat the other 4. That's mine. So that would be.
We ain't losing no games.
Nope.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I genuinely think. I think we've got Chelsea's number at Stamford, but we are dropping points. I think it'll be a draw, just because we'll have one eye on the United game. But I just think we're gonna. I don't want to say it yet, but we'll see what happens. But I just think we're gonna beat them. So yeah, I'm going 4 wins and a draw.
And the one thing that I want to see at the end of the season that I haven't really seen from Arteta's teams yet is, in games that we are not going to win, don't lose. We don't have enough draws. That if we had drawn some of the games that we lost earlier in the season, we wouldn't be in this position. And so those points matter. So if we can't beat Spurs, don't lose. If you can't beat Crystal Palace, don't lose. Though that would be kind of my thing going into the end of the season, changing some of those losses to draws. But I know you guys have more that you want to talk about. This is supposed to be 2 shows, but it ended up only being 1 because I couldn't do player ratings. So what we will do is, we have like 2 weeks off, you guys. We're going to have tons of content coming. Try to do daily if I can. I'm about to go cover LAFC today. And then tomorrow I cover LAFC as well. So I'll see what time I can do a show tomorrow. I'll make sure I pop in at some point. And then we'll just go from there. We'll probably do transfer show and all that kind of stuff. You guys know how in the break we like to do that kind of stuff. So we will be back. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, and follow Souls at Gunnar Souls on Twitter, as well as me at Justino Tweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Do me a favor, you guys, in the comment section, if you guys get a chance after the show is ended, let me know what you guys want to talk about during this break. Give me some ideas, because during the break, sometimes it's like, what? Like my brain is just like, what are we going to talk about? So let me know in the comment section what you guys would want to talk about, and we'll make shows based on that for the next 2 weeks if we have time. But like that video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.